This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. One of the best ways to get good at job hunting is to talk to people who do it well. That's why once a month, I interview a Mac's List reader who found a job they love. Our guest today is Ashlan Glazier-Anderson. She's the manager of marketing and online fundraising at Friends of the Children. It's a national organization that breaks the cycle of generational poverty. Ashlan Glazier-Anderson knows how to make the leap from the private sector to the nonprofit world. In a story you can find on the Mac's List website, Ashlan says she studied nonprofit job postings to understand the transferable skills that mattered most to hiring managers. Ashlan credits this approach, along with networking and volunteering, with her success in switching careers. Ashlan, why do you love your job?
So what I really love about my job is that switching from kind of the private sector to the nonprofit sector, I get to do mission-driven work every day. So what I fell in love with was the mission of Friends of the Children to impact generational change by supporting youth with professional mentors for a long-term committed relationship. So we're with our youth for over 12 years as they start in kindergarten, and we journey with them through high school graduation. So that was one of the first keys, and I think a major key as you decide which nonprofit that you would potentially want to apply for is to make sure that you are drawn to the mission, and it just makes going to work every day just so much more enjoyable since, you know, you're doing really, really important work day to day.
And was it the mission that made you decide to leave the private sector, or had this been a long-term goal?
It was a long-term goal. I actually was reminded by the director of our program. I was in a graduate program with the University of Oregon for strategic communications, and what I wrote in my application was that I did want to make the switch to nonprofit, and I think it was the perfect storm of both opportunity at the time. I had met members of the Friends of the Children organization through a project with my graduate school, as well as kind of knowing that at some point I wanted to make a change to do impactful work every day. I did really enjoy my previous jobs, but they were very much focused on consumers and kind of how to get people to buy products rather than focusing on social change and issues that will make society much better. And so that was why I chose to switch into the nonprofit sector instead of kind of staying in the private sector.
So how did you act on that vision? Because many people think, I'd like to do that, but they're not sure how to get started. What worked for you, Ashlan?
So I did a combination of two different things. First, I took a real hard look at what the different nonprofit jobs I was interested in were asking for as different skill sets. And I really matched up the skills that I had in kind of the for-profit world to match those for those job descriptions. So I think, you know, if you look at the way different job descriptions are written and what the bullet points say, there are a lot of comparable skill sets that you just have to explain a little differently to make it fit for that industry. And then the other thing that I think really helped in this as well is that I dedicated myself to doing volunteer service in the nonprofit industry. So it showed that not only did I have an interest in switching careers, but kind of in my spare time outside of my, day job, I was interested in helping out nonprofits.
Well, let's dig into both of those. Let's start with those job postings. Did you look at 5 job postings, 15, 50? How much was enough?
I looked at a lot of them. I would say that, Mac's List has all of the different job postings up. I went to your website quite often to take a look at those and just kind of bookmark them, see what was common, every single one that I potentially wanted to apply for a role like that, would look at what the bullets were and kind of build almost my dream job out of it and use that to find the skills that I had comparable to those. And then also, again, using my volunteer service to backfill some of those skill sets as well.
And when it came time to prepare resumes and cover letters and other application materials. How did you use that research in your materials?
So I think one of the things that I did was not only using the job posting that I was responding to as a way to formulate my resume and cover letter. It was really diving in. Well, let me treat these as two separate things. The resume, I mean, it was almost an apples to apples, copying some of the bullet points and explaining how those skills were coming through in the different activities that I've done, both through work and volunteer service. And then with the cover letter, I also tried to focus on, what was applicable in the jobs that I was already doing, as well as what I could bring to the team. So taking a look at their website, taking a look at their social media, and really talking to the organization about where I thought about taking those to the next level. So I think one of the things that people struggle with when they're writing their resumes and cover letters is I try to approach it from the lens of, imagine if you got the job, tell them what you're going to do in that first 30, 60, 90 days, really wow them. And then that will also draw them to make conclusions and have really good questions prepared for the interview process.
What advice do you have for people who might struggle with figuring out what they might do in those first 30, 60, 90 days, or also might struggle with understanding what the employer's problems are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say look at their websites, sign up for their email newsletters. If you can get an informational interview with somebody at the organization, that would be helpful. I was fortunate enough because I had worked with the person who would eventually become my supervisor. So I did have her able to answer questions for me right away as I was curious about the job position. But you shouldn't feel hesitant to reach out to people if you're able to connect with them, or, if you have somebody in your network, maybe through LinkedIn, or, a close friend or colleague who also has a relationship with that organization or a similar, organization, you could also ask them as well.
And then this is a lot of work doing this kind of research and customizing materials. How do you know it worked, Ashlan?
I got the job. I'll be the one. And I think, I've been doing this a lot in the past. When I was younger, so right out of undergrad, I took the approach of just kind of spray and pray with your resume and cover letter. So it was just like the only things that I was changing out is the name of the company and the name of the position. And that didn't really work well. You might send out 30 applications, but you're only getting maybe one interview in that because you're not really customizing it to them and you're not really speaking to them. I think people can read right away if you haven't made an effort to understand anything about their organization. And it really does become impressive when you can grab them in that first paragraph or couple of sentences about why they should consider your application.
You mentioned volunteering. Let's talk about that. What difference did volunteering make in this job search?
Since most of my previous experience was all in the for-profit world, my volunteer experience also showed that I had an understanding of how nonprofits work and operate. So I volunteer with an organization local here in Portland called Betty's 360. We're a youth serving organization that does after-school programming for middle school girls. And so I was able to show that I have an understanding of online fundraising, that, I've raised funds for an organization and that I have an interest in youth, which, Friends of the Children also works really closely with youth. And then I'm also on the board of directors and volunteering with the American Marketing Association, which provides kind of a credit to my marketing experience that I'm on that board as well.
Sometimes people volunteer with an organization because they love the mission and they hope it will lead to a job. But that's not the approach that you took in your volunteer work, is it?
No, I took this approach. I was connected with Betty's 360 through the American Marketing Association. And so that's why I've stayed involved with them. I do love their mission, but it was an opportunity for me to grow my marketing experience in different ways that I wasn't getting through my for-profit job. So I got to work on their email marketing, their social media, build a whole new website. I basically got to do what I wanted to do that I wasn't getting from my day job. And then with the American Marketing Association involvement there, it's a great networking opportunity. It's part of a national organization, or the National American Marketing Association. So you're able to make connections with people in different cities and states across the country, and then also grow your experience in marketing as well by managing part of the local chapter here.
How did those connections that you made, say, through the American Marketing Association and other forms of networking, help you in your job search? You met people, but what happened next? What actions did you take to build on those introductions?
Yeah, I think, I've met a variety of people that actually work in nonprofit through the American Marketing Association as well. It's not as many as, folks that work in for-profit world, but it is nice to be able to bounce off ideas from people who are in a similar situation as you, and also get their feedback as you are trying to go out there in the world. So I use my LinkedIn a lot to ask questions from people or stay connected there. So I was able to say, what are some of the things that people are looking for in a marketing position in a nonprofit? How is that different than a development position or fundraising position? And what should I kind of consider in those areas? So it's just nice to be able to get advice from others who are looking at the same kind of roles as you, or are in those kinds of roles right now.
And what difference did that advice make in your search in general and in getting this job in particular?
I think the difference that it made was just, having extra sets of eyes on my resume and cover letter, being able to make adjustments based on that feedback, and then also having just a new set of individuals that if this didn't work out, I would have more folks to reach out to about other opportunities in the area and in the industry.
What didn't work in your job search, Ashlan?
I think, like I referenced before, what doesn't work is just spraying and praying, not having people look at your materials. I have a very close friend of mine. We review each other's cover letters and resumes all the time, making sure to review it against the job that we're applying for. And, if you're moving really quickly and you're trying to search for jobs while you have a day job, it's always good to just have a second set of eyes to make sure you're not spelling anything incorrectly, that you don't put the wrong company in your cover letter, that you're making sure your resume is actually updated. I've seen when I've reviewed resumes and cover letters that have come in for interns that, it's not even about the job that they're applying for the company, and it just kind of creates a negative experience for the hiring person in that situation. So those are some of the things that I try to rely on if I was going to go back out and search for another job after this.
Well, finally, Ashlan, what's your number one job hunting tip?
It's really that customization of your materials to the company. It will make it so much more impressive to them that you've actually read and have some knowledge of their organization. And it really doesn't take that much time. Most organizations have websites and social media that are pretty extensive about their organization. And that'll actually help, and it will help you build questions for the organization when you come into the interview as well.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, Ashlan. To learn more about Ashlan Glazier-Anderson's job search, visit maxlist.org/stories. And check out the MaxList website for dozens of other success stories. On the second Friday of every month, we add a new interview with a MaxList reader who has found a dream job. Go to maxlist.org/stories. In the meantime, thank you for listening to today's bonus episode of Find Your Dream Job.